All right, so today we're working with Clyde, or actually we're working with Bonnie, and we're working with Karma, and we're doing some bat training, behavior adjustment training. And the goal here is to help the dogs be able to be calm enough before they meet each other, because currently they're not getting along very well. So what we're doing is they're both going to be leashed. We're about to bring Karma in a minute, and we want to have them as far away from each other in the beginning as possible. What we are looking for is the dogs to be nice and calm before they can walk towards each other. So the main goal for the owner or the guardian is to just stand there and assess the dog. Again, if their tail is at their back or below, that indicates that they're much calmer. If they're panting, pacing, whining, doing any kind of signals that say that they're not calm, otherwise they're saying like stress signals. Yawning is a big one. Shaking a lot, like shaking off like they got an itch, that's another signal that they're not very calm. We're looking for them to have nice facial relaxed muscles. Their body is not stiff and rigid. They're looking relaxed. They can start to move towards each other. If both dogs look like that, if one dog looks relaxed, the other one's stressed, we still wait. This is really a game of patience, or a training experience of patience, and to help them learn how to relax and calm down. If we have to always direct their behavior, then they won't ever learn how to be able to do this by themselves. So remember, just bring her right over into that corner, and then we're just going to let them kind of relax and be in the same room with each other. And so the other thing the guardians are mostly doing is they're there as like an emergency break. If you absolutely need to stop them from running after each other, you guys are there to hold the leash so they don't go after each other. But ideally, we have the leash loose because they're nice and calm. So if we have any tension on the leash, that is also going to increase the stress signal cortisol, and that will make them more reactive to each other because they're feeling that kind of pressure. So I just want you to pan over and kind of see where Karma is over here. So she's looking a lot more excitable, kind of high energy. So owner-wise, I just want you to stay calm. Don't give her any direction, but wait for her to learn how to relax. So just kind of stand there, pan over to see what Bonnie's doing. She's actually much calmer. She's also older, so she's able to kind of maintain a little bit more composure. But notice that over here we have Karma, who's whining quite a bit, or she was whining, and she's pacing, pulling around, kind of a little anxious, looking to her guardian for some direction. So we're just gonna kind of wait it out. So that's all we're gonna be doing, is kind of assessing their behavior and waiting for them to relax. So you can kind of focus more on the dogs. I don't need to be in it, I'll talk in the background. That's good. That's a good sign. Pan over to her. So you can kind of hear that possibly in the video if you can't hear it through the video, but notice that was a stress signal. So that yawning, the low pitch kind of whine that she was giving off, that's another stress signal. So all signs that she is still reactive enough that if she's too close to the other dog, it increases the likelihood that there's going to be some type of bite or warning signal given. That's really good. So I want you to notice the position of Bonnie. Even though she looks semi-relaxed because she's laying down, notice that she keeps doing stress yawns, she's panting, and she's also laying down in a position that's still a little rigid, where if she needs to pop up quick, she can. I don't know if you can hear it in the video, but Karma's still whining and doing kind of a high-pitched whine, so if you can't hear it in the video, that's something that is a signal that she's still a little too stressed. These two dogs have gotten into disagreements in the past, so it makes sense that they would be stressed around each other because of their past history. Dogs don't just forget those types of things. So we're helping build up trust between them and building the relationship. That's really what we're doing, because right now they don't trust each other.
Give her a little slack.
Perfect. Good call, James. Thank you. Do you see the stress, Jan?
I've misunderstood that for quite some time. I've taken that okay, Yanni, you sleep, he's calmed down now. I didn't realize that was the stress thing, because Clyde's done that and we always get better.
Yeah, so the dogs there's a lot of things. Another thing, things that they actually do to indicate that they're feeling calm and good with each other is a lot of times actually you'll see that if they'll start smelling the ground. And you would think it just means like, oh, they're calm enough to be smelling. It's really a way of saying, look, I'm not threatening at all. I'm just smelling the ground over here. But they're not really smelling. They're only doing it to show another dog, like, I'm not threatening. I'm okay. But the panting and because when she was in here by herself, when Bonnie wasn't in here, she was not panting like this, just sitting there. She's panting only out of stress, not because she's so warm.
She's still not
Oh, she's just waiting.
She is just waiting.
What you didn't see when the camera and both you had your back turned on, or you were on Karma at the time, right at the first part of the video. As soon as she got a chance, she took all the slack out of the leash and has been there ever since. She was just waiting. She thought maybe I wasn't
holding on to her.
Yeah.
And that's why this is something that takes patience and time. It might be that today all we can accomplish, this is actually a good signal that she is calm enough and trusting enough to be drinking water, because a dog that's super stressed and worried about getting attacked would not take time to drink water. So it's a good sign that Karma's relaxing and trusting the situation enough to be drinking the water like that. But it might be that we have to end when she can only come a couple feet closer. We take a break, you pick it back up tomorrow. And we keep doing this until they can get closer. This method does not mean that in one day we sit down and before you know it, they're best friends. This takes time to build and establish this relationship. So since she is a little bit calmer, why don't you just take a couple of steps forward, like one
around the table this way, or which
I would say over here to still give her a bit
That's
of
where
block.
the focus is. There's
So, but don't go closer than that. There you go. Perfect. So notice how she stopped breathing. Do you see her mouth is closed? That's an indicator that she's relaxing her mouth open. I know it's a bit of a stress signal, but it's when a dog goes from panting like that to all of a sudden holding their mouth closed, they're more likely at that time to bite into, increase aggression when that dog, because she saw her walk towards, so as soon as she did, she tensed up, closed her mouth. Just like when we get nervous, people always say, don't forget to breathe. It's because when we get nervous, it's like, we just tighten up and we stop breathing.
I think it was that noise that she makes. She does that to Ben and Echo sometimes.
Another thing I do want to mention is depending on how far we get today, if we don't get closer than this, depending on her behavior, I do want to make sure that I say this in the video for watching this later. Make sure that it's not just Karma approaching Bonnie or Clyde, that you're also having Karma be stationary and have them go closer to her, because it changes the game. Where if Karma's always walking towards Bonnie or Clyde, they get more like, this is my territory, I'm staying my ground, this is my space. But if she also has to move forward, it helps break them out of that cycle where she's not like an intruder on her space. Does that make sense? So I just want to make sure that that's in the video in case we don't get her to that point in the video, that I mention it so you know how to handle things going forward when I'm not here.
We just had a big relax here.
That was a huge
Should
relax.
I take a step this way?
So what
Maybe
I want
move on
you
over?
to do is I would like you to just slide over to the next couch cushion to give a little more slack, because it means that if she wanted to, she could get closer.
She will. I
But
think.
let's
We'll
see.
Yeah.
It's actually a better sign if she doesn't.
It's kind of her nap time too. She's thinking maybe I could just go to sleep.
But notice that she's more tense again, her mouth closed. Do you see how her neck is a little more rigid, her back is rigid, she's not as relaxed.
Listening both ways.
She's listening, she's got her ears going in different directions, she's listening to me, she's paying attention to Karma. Where Karma, in comparison, is much more relaxed. You see how low her tail is, she's panting, do you see how low her up until, she's just checking out James with the camera, but before that, her head was lower because she was so relaxed that she's not standing upright, where her head was up higher because she's on alert. But you were absolutely right. The moment she laid down and she gave that big exhale kind of sigh, just kind of call back to her, kind of like call back to Bonnie. There you go. Just to help her reduce some of the tension on the leash.
Roll here.
That's just so she doesn't knock on the floor. There you go. Perfect.
They live on the floor.
Her hair is just back to life.
You hear her whining a little bit, but that's good. So things to pay attention to here. She's sitting more cockeyed on her legs. She's not completely ready to just jump and spring into action, so that shows that Karma's being a little bit more relaxed. She's definitely relaxing by putting her head down. Her body is kind of cockeyed to the side where her legs aren't fully under her. Can you just pan over to Bonnie? Where her legs were not fully just directly under her, which would indicate that she's ready to spring up. So it's a good signal. Okay. Pull her away. There. So if they do start to act more and give any kind of warning signal like that, if you can, just have her walk away like that. If you need to, take steps backwards. Okay, step backwards with her. Good. Even if, depending on how long the video we run, I just want to have at least one time where you could see when it's appropriate to start to take a step back. Up until then, it was easy to just keep making progression because they were relaxing more and more. But then she got anxious, and that doesn't mean it's not going to work. It just means that we've got to take a step back and relax them. Good. So see how she relaxed more? Distance tends to equal calmness. So in the beginning stages, the farther they are from each other, the calmer they'll be. And I just want to reiterate for the video, make sure that when they do whine or get anxious or anything like that, that we're not petting them to soothe them, because remember that actually would be rewarding that kind of anxiety state. So we want to make sure that if they are whining, no one has done this. I just want to make sure for the video that it's a good reminder going forward for this activity. Don't pet them if they're whining or being anxious.
Now, do we pet them when they start calming down?
If you want to, that's okay. Just try not to overdo it. We don't want them to be laying down to get attention from you, to be looking for that type of attention, but you can reward them for good behavior like this. Like you just said, just a quick little pat, you're a good dog, good job. But we don't want them now kind of being like, okay, sit, lay down, like going into training, full training mode. This is more about them learning how to deal with each other, with you guys having control by having them on a leash. Less about training. This is really them working out the relationship. All right, so what we're gonna do is actually just kind of end the video, but we're gonna continue this off camera, and we're just gonna keep working on this. And just as a reminder, just work on this slow and surely. If you only get to this point and you have 15 minutes in the day to work with the dogs and that's it, better to do this and get them exposed to each other more and more, even if they don't get super close to each other, than to skip it altogether. So even just do what you have time allowing, and over time you will see them getting closer and closer, and also quicker, closer and closer, nice and calm.